Alright, this is part 2 of my series on model building. Picking up from last time, there was actually another tool I should have mentioned right after the X-Acto knife, and that is a cutting board or cutting mat. Really, this is just a surface that you cut stuff on, so as you won't be damaging your work area, your desk, what have you. You can get them primarily at craft and hobby stores. Though if you're absolutely desperate, you can probably get away with just using a scrap piece of wood. Alright, now one thing you will probably encounter eventually when you're building model kits is fit issues. Be it places where the parts don't really fit together that well, giant seams between parts, or just bad surface details. And the easiest way to fix that is with putty. Now there's a couple different kinds available. One that I really like is Squadron's green putty. It comes in a little tube, sort of a green, almost powdery gel type substance, but you can thin it with acetone, which makes it a little more liquidy and a little easier to apply in some areas. However, I have found that will cause the kit to get a little bit damaging as the putty dries, as the acetone will start to eat away at it, so be careful when you're working with it. Another similar one is Tamiya brand. I truthfully haven't had much luck with it. Some people swear by it, I don't know. It's basically very similar, except a little more gel-like, and you're supposedly able to thin it with paint thinner, but as I said, I've not had much luck with the product. Another putty that I've only recently started using is Tester's Contour Putty. What's nice about this putty is that it has a little fine tip nozzle, so you're able to get into really tight places that the others would be really difficult to work within. However, I have found that when it does dry, it's a little on the powdery side, so once you get it all sanded and neat, you're going to really need to put some paint or a primer over it pretty quickly. The last type of putty I use is Mr. Surfacer. What's nice about this is it's basically a liquid, and you can essentially paint it on. So it's really good for doing finishing touches where you've puttied before and may have stripped a little more or it was uneven. Additionally, you can thin it down and use it as a primer. Another good putty that I do use is epoxy type putty. This I primarily use in areas where I have big gaps, such as on resin figure kits, where you have sometimes issues where you have very large gaps between parts. I right now use Tamiya brand epoxy putty. Comes in 2 parts, a hardener and a resin. Basically, you cut up however much you need, knead them together, and then apply where you want to fill a gap. Additionally, you can use it to add details. In the instructions, it shows an example adding a fender to a car. Now, sometimes in model building there will be circumstances where you need to put holes into a kit, such as on wings of aircraft. You'll typically have to poke a hole through it to mount hard points, and the easiest way is with a pin vise. This one here, double-ended, so it has 2 different size acceptable bit heads. Obviously, this is something you don't have to get, as you can probably get away using an X-Acto knife to do similar, but it's a little easier to work with. A step up from that is a rotary tool. It will do the same thing, but do it a lot faster. However, at the same time, because of the increased speed, it's a little more difficult to handle, and obviously you're going to take a hit to your accuracy. Obviously, a lot of this stuff doesn't come with bits, so you're going to need to invest in a good multi-bit kit. I actually got that one from Costco for actually not that much, but it's a pretty good investment. Last thing I'm going to probably talk about in this video is decals. Now, obviously, most decals are between either dry transfer, which you essentially just rub on, and water slide. Now, for water slide, you're obviously going to need a container to hold water. I just used an old butter container. But prior to applying the decal, you're going to need to prep the surface, and for that I used microset. It's basically it cleans the surface of where you're going to apply the decal, so as to basically make it a little easier for the decal to hold on to. Then obviously once you apply the decal, you then use microsol. This basically melts the decal onto the surface, essentially making it look as though that decal was painted onto the surface. And by far, it's very good. It gives you very realistic finish to your decals. So I'm gonna stop it here for tonight. Part 3, I'll talk about painting and masking.